Welcome back, guys. It just takes a minute for everyone to load through. It's hard because I can't actually see the waiting room, so I'm not sure how many people are there. Oops. Beautiful. Okay, I think that we have quite a few people in already. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome, welcome. I do recognize some of those names, so welcome back to those of you who've been here before. For those of you who have not, we are the Marine Environmental Education Center located out on Hollywood Beach, Florida. Unfortunately, we are still closed. If you've been there before, it's a pretty small facility, so it's not very easy for us to open safely right now. Unfortunately, we are looking forward and hopefully we're going to open in soon. But until then, we want to put on this really cool webinar series. We wanted to make sure we were still providing resources for people to learn about the environment and learn about marine science, because that is our #1 priority at all times. So thank you very much for coming today. If you haven't seen it yet, our November schedule is out and we are setting up our December schedule for every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you know someone that's really wanting to do a webinar, have them shoot us an email. Otherwise, today we are lucky enough to be speaking with Keyla and Kimberly Correia. They are the co-founders of Plastic Free Mermaids. It's an organization that spreads awareness about plastic pollution through education, outreach, cleanups, political and art advocacy. So they are really, really cool. They are local. We really appreciate them coming in today and talking to us. We are going to hand things off and have them give us a little bit more information about their goals and their organization. But we are going to keep everyone muted. So if you do have a question, comment, concern, please throw it into that chat. I'll keep an eye on it during the presentation in case anyone's having any sort of issues, but otherwise they will make sure to answer all the questions at the end. We are going to be doing a poll a little bit later, so keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, I think that's about it for me. So whenever you guys are ready, feel free to take it away.
Awesome. Start sharing my screen. Okay, so hi guys, I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Kayla.
And we are the Plastic Free Mermaids.
So we both attend the University of Florida, where I am majoring in zoology and marine science, and I'm a 4th year.
And I'm a 2nd year, and I'm majoring in psychology, communication sciences and disorders, and a minor in disabilities and society. So as Taylor stated, the mission of the Plastic Free Mermaids is just to spread awareness about plastic pollution through education, outreach, cleanups, and political and art advocacy. We started this organization in 2014, and now it's 2020, so it's been quite a long time. And just an idea of what our pillars are, these are our pillars. So what is plastic? I'm sure some of you know, but just as a general definition of plastic, it's basically a group of materials. It can be either synthetically or naturally created, and they basically can be molded into any shape. And they are typically soft or hard given the materials that they're made with.
So where does plastic come from? So plastic comes from oil that is being pumped out from the ocean, known as crude oil. This gets sent to a refinery where it's made into ethylene, then it's made into polyethylene. And the last process, what it is made into, is nurdles. And nurdles are a pre-packaged plastic that is basically the size of lentils. And it can be made into anything from the size of like a water bottle to PVC pipes, and molded back into those nurdle shapes.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to play a little video for you guys just to get an idea of the process and what is included in plastic.
Called bisphenol A. This is a chemical that in 1936 was considered for use as an estrogen drug. Then in the 1950s, some tricky chemists found that they could link this chemical together and it creates a hard, clear, glass-like plastic.
So hopefully you guys were able to hear that okay, but essentially it's just, as some of you may have heard, it's called BPA, bisphenol A, and that is the toxic material that's included in plastic.
And it was originally used as an estrogen drug in the early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
Called
So what are the different categories of plastic? So we're going to just highlight two main categories of plastic, which are single-use plastics and packaging and wrapping. This is not an inclusive list. There's different types of plastic that are in toothbrushes, in our phones, in our glasses, in our shoes. But just for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to highlight two. So single-use plastics are typically plastics that you would only use once, which include, plastic straws you might get at a restaurant, plastic water bottles, utensils, plastic bags, as well as packaging. So you might see these in produce, in grocery stores. This can even be in household items.
So how much plastic has been produced? Since about the 1960s, 1950s, 8.3 billion metric tons of plastic has been mass produced, give or take a couple of tons throughout the years. But if you want to think about it in a more tangible perspective, just think of an African elephant. One African elephant weighs about 5 metric tons. So the equivalent of 8.3 million tons of plastic is about 1 billion elephants. But currently in 2020, there's only about 400,000 African elephants in the wild. So currently there's more plastic than elephants.
Mm-hmm.
So this is photodegradation. It is basically the way that when plastic enters the water, what happens is that the sunlight will melt and break apart the different plastic components and structures and will release toxic chemicals. And these chemicals could cause early puberty among females. It could disrupt your endocrine system and cause a lot of different hormonal imbalances.
Mm-hmm. And there's different types of ways that plastic can enter the food chain. One of them is through bioaccumulation. So this process is basically where plastic is now being melted by the sun and it breaks down into smaller pieces. These pieces can be as big as the shape it's created or even as small as a nurdle. And it just kind of works its way up the food chain. I can attest to this because I went to the Bahamas to speak for the Bahamas Plastic Movement summer camp. And we dissected a mahi-mahi that was found on the shore. And we found that there were plastic nurdles inside its intestinal tract. And so, of course, as humans, we may eat mahi-mahi as a food source. And so not only are we getting the toxins that are inside this fish's system, but as well as the plastic particles itself. And since we humans are in the top of the food chain, as biomagnification occurs, we probably get the most plastic toxicity in our body. So you may ask, well, then why are marine species ingesting plastic? And one main reason is that sometimes they may confuse a plastic shape for their food source. So the infamous example is that plastic bag is floating in the water and a turtle may confuse it as a jellyfish. But there are other reasons why marine species are ingesting plastic, which Kayla will explain in a second.
So this research paper came out in 2017 and is basically talking about the chemosensory mechanism found within foraging fish. Foraging fish, an example that they used in the paper are anchovies, and these fish forage for their food. They're constantly actively looking for food and they school together, so they form these huge masses. And these fish feed upon zooplankton, phytoplankton, which are very microscopic that you cannot see with your own eye, but they are always found in the top surface of the ocean. And what they use is that these when plastic enters the environment in the water and it basically degrades into smaller plastic fragments, these zooplankton, phytoplankton will attach themselves to it, and it's called biofouling. Well, what these species will end up doing is releasing chemicals, and these chemicals are what the foraging fish use to be able to sense where food is. And since they feed upon phytoplankton, they will feed upon the plastic particles that are they're attaching to. And the more concentrated they are, such as in the gyres, they'll release more of these odors, and the school of fish will attract themselves there. Not only do fish such as anchovies use chemosensory, also birds such as albatrosses also use it. That's why you find a lot of birds such as albatrosses with plastic within their bodies. But when you think about it, not only are the anchovies consuming the plastic particles, but the fish that feed upon them, such as the whales, the dolphins, the sharks, the tunas, they're also feeding upon the plastic since it's in large concentrations.
Mm-hmm. So now you might be wondering, well, how do you solve this plastic pollution epidemic? And the US has tried many ways. The infamous example is the 3 R's: to reduce, reuse, and recycle. We have tried recycling for quite a long time now, and I'll just highlight on the right side is some kind of key components that are demonstrated in different cities. So in Delaware, these are the acceptable, non-acceptable rules to recycling. They're different in every city. And that kind of creates a little bit of confusion, especially if you're moving or et cetera, that there's really restrictive rules to recycling. And so this kind of creates a process of contamination for the recycling bins and et cetera. So why is recycling not a feasible solution? Like, as I stated, when a lot of plastic products become contaminated. So you might put a soft plastic, like such as plastic bags, inside your recycling bin with other plastics that can be recycled. The bin is not contaminated, as seen on the top right. What happens is it clogs these recycling machines. So now these recycling machines are unable to be used. Also, we don't have enough infrastructure. So the recycling facilities that we do have are not recycling every plastic that they may say they do. So as you can see here in Chicago, they only recycle less than 9% of the waste that they are being given. And now, even due to COVID-19, we don't have enough manpower to recycle. So now a lot of facilities, as you can see here on the bottom right, they're being backed up with a lot of waste on the outside of their facilities. So a second solution that the US tried to create was to send their plastic elsewhere. We sent our plastic, as shown on the left side, to different countries. The big one was with China. However, in 2018, China put a ban on us sending plastic to their country, because we were not just sending plastic that can be recycled and upcycled into different materials. We were also sending contaminated plastic, plastic that wasn't cleaned properly, or plastic that wasn't even able to be recycled. That was stated in their agreement. So because of the over influx of plastic now in China, and especially because they're the hub for plastic production, they said no more, and they put a ban on it. So now we have to find a way to deal with our own plastic, essentially. Also, interesting enough, China did create in January of 2020 a ban on single-use plastics that will be rolling out and being more effective in 2022 to 2025. So plastic is being really a huge problem in different countries other than the United States. And I think it's really interesting that China is starting to put a ban on plastic products. So yeah.
So what is a way to be able to combat all this? And it's basically through sustainability. Sustainable is something that is using like a renewable resource that can be used over and over again, and it will never be depleted. You're good. Okay. So the sustainable lifestyle is just what says here describes a lifestyle that attempts to reduce a person's individual waste. Mm-hmm. And these are just the different types of sustainable lifestyles, plastic free, zero waste, transportation friendly, as well as the different types of food options, veganism, being vegetarian. And it's just all basically tied together into like one category, and they're all like intermingled. So what we have tried to do, and it's a much better process than the actual plastic, is they're called 3 different types of plastics: bio-based plastics, biodegradable plastics, and compostable. So bio-based plastics are made entirely up of renewable materials such as fungi, plants, animals that can be able to be broken down by microbes or the natural environment and be able to be reused again.
Which is different than plastic that's created now, because it's not biodegradable, essentially. It just goes back into its original form, like we stated earlier, which were nurdles.
And it's also used as an umbrella term for compostable and biodegradable plastics. Biodegradable plastics are made from the same materials as normal petroleum-based plastics. It's just it comes with more chemicals. And so when these chemicals are broken down, with light or air, it breaks down even faster, but also releases a whole bunch of excess chemicals that is not needed. And it will usually take about 3 to 6 months with just normal microbes. Mm-hmm. However, the EPA requires landfills to block out air, moisture, and sunlight, which are the 3 main ingredients for biodegradation of biodegradable materials. So they're basically considered the same as a normal plastic product. And the thing what happens is, depending on the plastic product you're being sent into the landfills and recycling chambers, they cannot be mixed with each other. Otherwise, it will be considered contaminated. So compostable plastics, these are the best out of the rest. I would say, like, to me, they're made out of materials such as starch, cellulose, soy protein, and lactic acid. Sometimes, though, they can be made from petroleum-based products, but majority of the times it is not. The thing, though, is that there's only from a UC Berkeley paper that they just recently sent out, there's not enough facilities to be able to hold these compostable plastics. And with these, you also cannot just in your own compost chambers at home, you cannot put these products in there because it's not allowed. Like it won't at all like the name for it. It won't compost properly. And what is needed is that it needs these ideal environmental conditions, such as a 50 to 60 Celsius temperature range. And at least you also need to have about 6 months of it to be able to compose. And the normal landfill facility requires 3 months. So it's basically sent like an equivalent as a normal plastic product.
So with all of that in mind, we still do primarily use the single-use plastic products that are seen in our environments and that are made out of petroleum and crude oil. And so the big emphasis that we have within our organization is to eliminate the usage of plastics, to refuse it completely. And we know that that's difficult. We keep that in mind when we see, plastic packaging, and it's hard to get maybe a shampoo bar at, a local restaurant, at a supermarket, than it is at, like a farmer's market essentially. But so we try to create something called, which has been around for a while, it's a plastic free lifestyle. So the main single-use plastics that exist are plastic bags, water bottles, utensils, and straws. And so we decided with our plastic free journey that we would eliminate one of these 4 just to create something more feasible and efficient, because it can be overwhelming to try to eliminate all at the same time. So just to break it down into smaller pieces, we chose one of these 4. And just to select a time frame, so a realistic time frame that you think will help you to be on this, plastic-free journey. And so it could be a week, a month, or a year. And then afterwards, you can maybe try, I've been efficient, I haven't even thought of it, it's just become second nature to not ask for a plastic straw at a restaurant, or not to bring my own utensils somewhere. So then maybe work into a different type of number, maybe use plastic bags instead. So essentially just to wait until all 4 of these single-use plastics are gone, because these are the ones that we can eliminate the easiest at the time.
And basically we know the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, but just rethink the way that those 3 R's are used. So instead of recycle, do refuse. So you reduce your consumption, you reuse the products you have used. What are different purposes that you can use them for? And then refuse, using also you could do the plastic free lifestyle and refuse one of those 4 single types of plastic products.
Mm-hmm. Also, reuse can go within clothing, because there is polystyrene in polyester in clothing, which are plastic products as well. So just reusing your clothing, or donating it rather than buying more. So a little bit about our organization and how we combat plastic pollution. As we stated within our mission, advocacy is a huge part of our organization, because we realize that a lot of the times it will start within the legislation. We'll start with our city representatives. And so how can we combat plastic at its source? And again, it comes with our representation. So a lot of times we've heard that our city's representatives don't know that we want to eliminate these plastic products, or they're not even aware themselves that plastic is such a huge issue. So a lot of times it helps to just go into and present at, because they do have, city meetings. So going into the city meetings and talking about it. Some examples that we have here is that my sister and I presented on the left to Fort Lauderdale city representation. I got invited to the Blue Vision Summit in Washington, D.C. So I spoke to Florida representatives there. As you can see, Bill Nelson was one of them. And then also on the right was Dania Beach. So these meetings are, presented for the public. So you can go there and maybe look at different legislation that they have that exists and they're not enforcing, different bans, because that happened when we were trying to ban in Hollywood. There was a ban that existed. It has like 134. And so essentially you can't use plastic on east of the intercoastal. And this ban existed, but it wasn't being enforced. And so after reading through legislation, we found out that we wanted to present this to our city representatives, and they were able to enforce it. So essentially it's kind of just either not maybe establishing your own ordinance or your ban, because those can get very complicated, but simply just making your city officials more aware.
So for art advocacy, what we do is that usually the plastic we find in the environment, when we go and do cleanups, we're able to upcycle it into art. So we have done plastic flowers, where with the water bottles, we made them into flowers. We've also used bags into jump ropes, and murals.
Yeah, so these are just some fun, creative ways to upcycle plastic. And this is how we started our organization, because at the time we, didn't realize that advocacy was such a big thing and it was so important. So we thought our advocacy would be a great way, because then it kind of shows, it's like a great conversation piece. They're painting these flowers that you've created and they're asking questions like, why did you do this? Or, and then it can also be a keepsake. So they put it on their fridge or something just to remind them that, oh, this is why it's so important, because it ends up going back into our environment and, harming us and our marine species. So it's just kind of goes full circle, and it's a fun, creative idea.
For education, we have taught at different local feeder and middle schools when we attended South Broward High School in Hollywood, Florida. And also whenever we go into summits, we also educate on how to talk to your legislators, as well as what we're doing now, the types of news articles we find, scientific articles, and just our work and just spreading awareness and creating a new mental mindset.
Yeah, and especially because it's so important to educate our youth. And we were youth at the time when we were presenting, like less than 18 years old. But now we just realize that it's so important to kind of get that mindset instilled in them at a young age, and to show them and everyone and globally, because we do this not only in our local schools such as McNichol and New River, but we also do this on a global scale. So well, at a national scale and global scale. On the bottom right is when we were presenting in California, and these was an international summit at the Plastic Pollution POPs. Yeah. And so these students were from New Zealand, they were from Botswana, Lebanon. So you're kind of just getting a global audience to kind of, we're all in the same umbrella with plastic pollution affecting us all.
For cleanups, we have done a different variety of different cleanups, and we wanted to steer away from the traditional beach cleanups. So we participated and also hosted in kayaking cleanups, snorkeling cleanups, kayaking cleanups that also teaches and exposes the participants of marine science stuff. So when we went kayaking, we also searched the floor of the intercoastal for sea urchins and conchs with their foot to understand what they feel like when you're not looking at them full face, as well as to show like how close they are from the mangroves. We've also done a couple of snorkeling cleanups where we would clean up in Elliott Key in Biscayne National Park, and afterwards we would go snorkeling, which is not even like a 5-minute boat ride from the key into these reefs. And so some of these participants have never ever seen a reef before, and so to them they're like shocked by how close in proximity everything is.
And we're so grateful for being brought up with beach cleanups, but we know that it sometimes can get tiresome with just bending down and redundant almost to just pick up this plastic and putting it in your bag, even though as efficient as it is. And we just realized we wanted to create more interactive engagement to cleanups. And so I think that's unique within our organization, because we try to bring these people to the environment to show, after this cleanup, what are you protecting? And now they're able to see the marine species and how diverse and abundant they are, and a purpose to protecting them. And this is just our global outreach. So as I stated before, we have partners all around the globe. Like I mentioned, with the Bahamas Plastic Movement, we keep connections with them because plastic is such a global issue and affects us all pretty much the same. And this is on the left when we went to POPs as well. Some more photos. And on the right was when we went to Bahamas, to Eleuthera, Bahamas specifically. Yeah.
And in Eleuthera, Bahamas, we also created a call to action video.
Yeah, so we worked with the Bahamian youth. There were about 100 Bahamian youth there at this camp. And I just helped direct it essentially, but the youth were there to call out to their city officials and the prime ministers and ask them to bring awareness that they do not like that single-use plastics exist in their environment, and a way to do and combat it. And so they brought up possibly establishing a ban, and effective as of this year, they have established a plastic bag ban in Eleuthera, Bahamas, which is amazing. I'm so proud of them. So that just comes to just a lot of times how advocacy is so important, and why you always have to bring not only education and awareness to community, but also to your city officials.
Yeah, and it's just enjoy what you do, enjoy the process of being plastic free and the journey of it, because it's a very rewarding and inspiring lifestyle.
Yeah, and we do really fun things, like we like to dress up as mermaids because our organization is Plastic Free Mermaids, and we got these fins donated to us, so we like to dress up and wear them. Yeah, also a great tool for like children, because they like to come up to you and like talk to you about, oh my gosh, you're a mermaid? What are you mermaid? And another great conversation piece, so it's really fun.
Oh, also we have a poll that we would like you guys do. I don't know.
Yeah, Taylor's going to show you. So these are just a poll that you guys can answer. We just want to get an idea of, the first question is, do you use single-use plastics daily? Yes or no? And again, this can be using a straw at a restaurant, or maybe, you know, using a plastic bag. Additionally, you can, also, we plug different, like, different information within the presentation, like, do we send our plastic waste to other countries, true or false? How much plastic is recycled annually out of the 8.3 billion metric tons that exists? And how much crude oil? I don't think we specified exactly how much, but just give an estimate because it might surprise you. And if you would participate in the plastic-free lifestyle, which single-use plastic would you eliminate?
So we have some questions.
Let's wait for the poll to finish, I think.
I know, but hold on.
Also, I think Samantha raised her hand. You can unmute yourself if you have a question, Samantha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys can see the poll too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just making sure.
Thank you. We're almost there, guys. 36% of you guys have voted. We'll wait a couple more minutes. You can say that. And we saw some questions in the chat, which we'll get to right after we finish the poll, just because we want to go over the poll answers. Should we end it now? Or? Okay. Yeah? Okay. We're going to end the poll now, just so you guys can see your results. So you can share results. So do you guys use single-use plastics daily? A majority of you do not, which is amazing. And some of you do, which is totally okay. I'm glad you guys are getting your foot in the door to just what a sustainable lifestyle is like. So that's amazing. Does the United States send our plastic to other countries? The answer is true. We do send it to several countries, and the majority of the one being China, but as of right now, not anymore. So technically it's a true and a false answer. So currently no, but we used to, yes. How much plastic is recycled annually? It is 9% annually, and that goes for a national average as of the United States. So again, that's not very much considering we have billions and billions of metric tons in our environment existing now. How much of the world's crude oil is used to manufacture plastic? It is 25% of oil, so that is a lot. How much oil we frack from our environment and using for plastic, which is kind of scary because the oil we're pumping into our cars is also being used to use the plastic that we're ingesting. So it's kind of scary. And if you want to participate in a plastic-free lifestyle, which single-use plastic would you eliminate? A majority of you said bags, and I agree. I think that's what Kayla and I started out with. It's probably the easiest one, especially because there's so many reusable bags they might give you at like different events that you might go to. We have a majority, like a large amount of them. So, and water bottles, that's awesome. Great. So I'll stop sharing the polls. I did see some questions in the chat. So the first one being from Amanda, would you be able to present to marine science classes through Zoom? I'm a teacher at Somerset Academy. Yes, actually we do do a lot of Zoom presentations now, especially through COVID, but we love to present to our youth. So absolutely. So if you want to just, maybe we can reach out to you, or if you want to type your information in the chat, you can message us privately.
There's
so
also
we can reach out to you.
Our social media, you can still see is where our
contact information
is as well.
That as well. Another one is, how can high school students get involved? So Yeah, we still do cleanups right now because my sister and I are in Gainesville at the University of Florida. It's a little bit difficult to, kind of do more hands-on cleanups, but one of our chapters at South Broward High School created a great idea, maybe to do cleanups on their own time and use an app that records how much plastic you are collecting. So to send that data to researchers that, need it to figure out how much single-use plastic is, polluting our environment. So again, we can reach out to you with more specifics on that. But yeah, high school students can definitely get involved even during the pandemic because they do it on their own time, and we kind of collectively come together to show like photos that they've sent. We upload it to our social media just to create a community now that we're all kind of separated.
Also, if they also want to do like advocacy going into their, like talking to their city mayors and leaders, I do know that I'm pretty sure it's Surfrider Foundation as well as in Broward County. Catherine still does it, right? Yes, Catherine Uden, who's a part of Oceana now. She has a really good contact with the city mayor of Hollywood, also those of Hollandale, Fort Lauderdale, and Dania Beach. She always goes to their meetings to talk about and push for elimination of plastic, and currently she's also doing one for utensils. So we could definitely, if you're interested in that at all, you could definitely email us or talk to us.
Yeah, because we sign up for on hours. So if they go and they call their city officials, we have like a list of names and numbers that they can call. And if they spend like an hour doing that, we can sign off on hours. So they don't have to physically go to these meetings. They can do it, through the phone as well. Another question. So since plastic is so prevalent in our daily lives and will require everyone's effort to tackle this issue, how do we get all 7.8 billion humans on this planet to buy into being better inhabitants of this planet? So one thing that Kayla and I noticed that a lot of times people are not just environmentalists. They don't like to consider themselves, sustainable or hippies or whatever. So we don't like to use scare tactics, but we do want to be positive reinforcers. So we show them how plastic doesn't just affect the environment, because a lot of times people might care a little bit more if it affects themselves. So, and it becomes more personal. So one of the things that Kayla highlighted was that toxins that are emitted from plastic when melted by the sun, photodegradation, it releases cancer-causing toxins, carcinogens. So that's kind of one key thing that we used to harp on when we were talking to people that really didn't give us the time of the day. So I think that's maybe one tactic you can use.
Yeah, another one is, because I've gotten that a couple times, is that there's so many people, what is one person going to make a difference of? And I think more than anything, like we have seen so far with the whole climate change movement with Greta Thunberg, just one individual is able to make a humongous change. And with her, what she did, she made like a whole massive movement. And all of a sudden, students everywhere of all ages, people and adults, are now like on board with climate change. So that just shows you how one individual is able to make a humongous change. So by you personally reducing the amount of plastic in your own life, and then by your family, your friends, your roommates seeing that action and seeing how also you decided to change your life, they're going to try to follow suit, because that's kind of like a very human nature thing to do. Yeah. And then from there, they're going to like talk to 10 more people and 10 more people. So there's going to be this whole massive movement. And not only that, maybe you'll be inspired one day and decide to run for political office, maybe, or be able to create new infrastructures to handle the whole massive trash that we have, or maybe reusing the plastic into new products like clothing. You will be able to change those 7.8 billion people. It may not happen like within the next couple of years, but it will happen like sometime during our lifetime or our grandchildren's.
Mm-hmm. It's already happening. I didn't expect China to enforce a single-use plastic ban. It only took one of their city officials, June, to establish it. So it can happen. It takes a little bit of time. What would you say is the most important pathway to decrease single-use plastics, education or legislation? That's a great question. I think at first, Kayla and I really didn't know much about legislation. So education was our main platform because, again, consumerism really reinforces the market. So if you're buying plastic products, you're just going to keep producing them. But a lot of times there's not options, like we mentioned, there isn't, shampoo bars that are without plastic packaging. It's just a shampoo bottle. So I think it goes both ways. I think they're both important. Right now, I might say legislation a little bit more, but I think both are very much important.
Yeah, and they both go hand in hand. Without education, you would not be able to change your mindset.
Mm-hmm. sorry, just something. I'm very impressed they were able to institute a ban in the Bahamas. Thank you. It was great. Do you know how they got enough momentum behind that movement? Would you something like that work in Florida? So they actually did get a lot of momentum. The community in Eleuthera is very small. We only had about 100 Bahamian youth, and that was basically the majority of the youth community. And especially because we recorded this and we sent it to the officials. And they also followed up after this camp. They scheduled meeting after meeting and just kept talking to the secretaries of the prime ministers to just have a meeting and chat. And yeah, I think after a while, they did get enough momentum. It just took a little bit of time, but they never gave up. They were very persistent. And I think that was a huge component of the ban being effective, because they kept following up and reinforcing it. Would something like that work in Florida? It's a little bit complicated in Florida. We did try to enforce a plastic bag ban. However, with, what is the company called?
So it's called the Florida Retail Federation. They're called FRF, and basically what they do, they advocate for all the any business, any company, any retail or supermarket, and it's just basically advocating for the best of themselves. And what they would do is that they have partners and really close contacts with people within the Florida legislation that kind of benefits those corporations. And so when we wanted to, along with a whole bunch of other organizations, try to pass this Florida plastic bag ban, what ended up happening was that FRF was a really big pusher behind, against that ban. And so Florida legislators decided to create a ban on any city banning plastic bags,
which is called a preemption, essentially. So it's a ban on a ban. So
yes.
We're unable to ban plastic bags, but there are many loopholes. And you may see that in Catherine Uden's workshop as well, is that you get to, if you read through their legislation, a lot of the times there are no preemptions or no bans on utensils. So that's something Kayla and I are going to work on in Gainesville. And Catherine mentioned she would work on in the Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood area. Also, there are slowly starting to come bans, and at least in Gainesville, on straws. And they're also on Hollywood Broadwalk. I've seen compostable packaging, that they can't have, plastic containers and stuff.
So more than anything, what the best way to do this is to constantly talk to the legislators and be like, hi, I do not approve of this ban. I am someone that lives in Florida. I live in the city. I don't approve. And you were able, and they actually do listen. They were able to repeal, I forgot which one it was, but they did listen to a mass majority of the Floridians, and they were able to take away some of the bans that they did.
Yeah, so it really is just that one phone call. As long as you get 10 more people after you to follow up on that phone call, that shows maybe something's going on here. So that's why it's really important to call your city officials and get your friends to do it with you. So it's kind of consistent calling at the same time. And that's what the Bahamas, like I mentioned, did. They consistently followed up. It might have been a little bit easier in Eleuthera, just because there's a smaller, dense population and they're a lot closer with their city officials, but I think it can still happen. It's just, it requires a community and a cohort.
Not just one individual.
I think that's it for the poll questions.
Yes, I think that's it for the questions. If anyone does think of one later on, feel free to either get down their email, or if you email us at MEEC, MEEC @nova.edu, we could definitely pass it on along. If you guys, I'll follow up with an email and get all of your socials and things, and I'll put it with our video on YouTube. This is being recorded. So if anyone missed the beginning and want to see what happened, we are doing a quick edit, and then we'll post it on our YouTube page at Seek the MEEC. And we will link all of your socials there as well, just in case anyone wants to follow and see how you guys are doing. But otherwise, thank you guys for coming. Thank you very much. This Tuesday, November 17th, we are having Catherine Uden come in and do a presentation with us. She is from Oceania, and she's going to be talking to us a lot about all the different campaigns, both local and just the giant ones, because Oceania is a huge company. They're really, really cool. And they are a major driver behind a lot of different changes. So she is the South Florida rep, I believe, and she's going to be telling us all about what Oceania is doing and how you guys can help both locally and globally. So join us then. It's going to be the same link Tuesday at 3 p.m. Otherwise, yeah, thank you so much, Kimberly and Kayla. This was very cool. I learned a lot more about plastics than I ever thought I would know.
Thank you so much.
And thank you guys for coming today.
Appreciate it. Bye.